The suitcase zipper finally closed over my carefully packed swimsuit and sunscreen. 5 years of marriage, 3 years of saving, and one dream vacation to Hawaii. Finally happening tomorrow. My phone buzzed. My sister Amanda. I answered, expecting the usual small talk, but instead got an immediate demand. She needed me to cancel my anniversary trip to watch her 3 kids for 2 weeks. I refused. The rage in her voice shocked me as she called me selfish, heartless, and a terrible aunt. Before I could respond, my parents were calling too. Jeff and I had been planning this trip since our wedding day. We'd promised each other that for our 5th anniversary we would finally visit Hawaii. This wasn't just any vacation for us. The past 3 years had been an emotional roller coaster as we struggled with infertility. Month after month of negative tests, thousands of dollars spent on treatments, and countless tears shed when nothing worked. The doctors had no answers beyond suggesting we keep trying or consider more invasive and expensive options. This trip represented something we desperately needed. A chance to reconnect and heal. Our wedding had been modest by most standards. Neither of our families had much money, and we'd prioritized buying our small 3-bedroom home over an extravagant ceremony. We'd gotten married in Jeff's parents' backyard with fewer than 50 guests. The entire event cost less than $5,000, but it was perfect for us. During our first dance, Jeff had whispered that someday he'd take me somewhere amazing, somewhere tropical with clear blue waters. We settled on Hawaii for our 5th anniversary, giving us time to save. As a pediatric nurse at County General Hospital, I worked long hours caring for sick children. Jeff taught high school math and coached the basketball team for extra income. Between our modest salaries, we managed to put aside a little each month specifically for this trip. 3 years of disciplined saving had finally given us enough for 10 days in paradise. We'd booked everything 6 months in advance. Flights, accommodations at a beachfront resort, even a couple of excursions. The total came to nearly $8,000, all non-refundable. My relationship with my sister Amanda had always been complicated. Growing up, she was the demanding one. The one who expected everything to revolve around her schedule and her needs. Our parents reinforced this dynamic by consistently prioritizing her wants over mine. When she met and married Ryan, a successful businessman who made 3 times what Jeff and I earned, combined her sense of entitlement only grew. She had 3 children in quick succession. Sophie 8, Lucas 6, and Ellie 3. And complained constantly about the challenges of motherhood, despite having a part-time nanny and a housekeeper. I loved my nieces and nephew, but their behavior reflected their parents' inconsistent discipline. Amanda alternated between strict rules and complete permissiveness, depending on her mood. Ryan was rarely home, traveling frequently for business. And when he was present, he tended to overindulge the children to compensate for his absence. The kids were sweet at their core, but often wild and difficult to manage. Over the years, I'd stepped in to help Amanda countless times. When Sophie was born and Amanda had postpartum depression, I'd taken time off work to help for 2 weeks. When Lucas broke his arm at age 4, I'd stayed with Sophie so Amanda and Ryan could focus on him. Just last summer, I'd watched all 3 kids for a weekend so Amanda and Ryan could attend a wedding. Each time Amanda acted as though my assistance was expected rather than appreciated. The night before our flight, Jeff and I were finishing our packing when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find not just Amanda but my parents, Pat and Greg, standing on the porch with serious expressions. Amanda's eyes were red as though she'd been crying. "We need to talk," my mother said, stepping past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. "This Hawaii thing has gone far enough." Jeff appeared behind me, confusion evident on his face. "What's going on?" "You two are being incredibly selfish," my father said, following my mother inside. "We're here to help you understand what family really means." Amanda entered last, arms crossed. "I can't believe you're still planning to go after I explained how desperately I need you." They arranged themselves in our living room like a tribunal, with my parents flanking Amanda on the couch, while Jeff and I sat across from them. I felt ambushed as though this intervention had been carefully planned. "Tara," My mother began using her most authoritative tone. Your sister needs you. Ryan has an important business trip, and she has a special anniversary surprise planned that coincides with your trip. These things can't be changed. Your vacation can. I tried to stay calm. Mom, we've been planning this for years. We've spent thousands on non-refundable bookings. This is our 5th anniversary trip. Real family members sacrifice for each other. My mother replied dismissively. Jeff could still go alone if he wanted. This is about your priorities, Tara. My father leaned forward. When you were kids, I gave up a promotion that would have required relocation because Amanda was settled in her school and had her friends. That's what parents do. That's what family does. The tension in the room was suffocating. Jeff reached for my hand, a silent show of support. What's this special anniversary surprise that's so important? I asked Amanda directly. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. Ryan doesn't know yet, but I've booked us a romantic getaway to Cabo. It's our 8th anniversary, and we haven't had a real vacation in years. The timing overlaps with your trip, and I need someone I trust to watch the kids. I blinked in disbelief. So, you're planning a surprise vacation that coincides exactly with our long-planned trip, and you expect us to cancel so you can have yours? Amanda's eyes narrowed. It's not fair that you get a vacation when I deserve one more. Do you know how hard it is being a mother to 3 children? You wouldn't understand, since you don't have kids. Her words hit like a physical blow, and I felt Jeff tense beside me. Amanda knew about our fertility struggles. We'd confided in her during a rare moment of sisterly connection. For her to throw that in my face now was unforgivable. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my brother Max, who lived 2 states away and rarely called. I excused myself to answer, thinking perhaps there was a family emergency I wasn't aware of. Tara, Max said. Without preamble, I just wanted to tell you that I think you should reconsider your position about watching Amanda's kids. Mom called me earlier. Family should come first. I was speechless. Max and Amanda typically didn't get along yet. Here he was taking her side. Did Mom tell you we've been planning this trip for 3 years? That it's completely paid for and non-refundable? She mentioned it's your anniversary, he said, sounding uncomfortable. Look, I know Amanda can be difficult, but the kids shouldn't suffer because of it. After hanging up, I checked my phone and discovered a group chat I hadn't known existed, called Tara's Selfishness Intervention. It included my parents, Amanda, Max, and several extended family members, all discussing how to convince me to cancel my trip. The betrayal of it all left me breathless. When I returned to the living room, Jeff was politely but firmly explaining to my family that we would not be canceling our trip. His usually gentle demeanor had been replaced by something steelier. We understand family is important, he was saying, which is why Tara has helped Amanda numerous times over the years. But this trip is important to us too. We've been saving for this since our wedding, and we need this time together. My mother scoffed. Need. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Amanda needs help. You two just want to lie on a beach. I'd had enough. I think you all should leave now. We have an early flight tomorrow, and this conversation isn't productive, so that's it. Amanda stood, voice rising. You're choosing a vacation over your family, over your niece and nephews who love you. I'm choosing to keep the commitment I made to my husband, I said firmly. You've known about this trip for months. Your lack of planning doesn't constitute an emergency for me. They left in a flurry of slammed doors and muttered insults. Jeff put his arm around me as we watched them drive away. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Let's just focus on tomorrow. Hawaii awaits. The morning of our departure, I woke to dozens of notifications on my phone. Not just from my immediate family, but from aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely spoke to. Some were asking if I was really going through with this selfish trip. Others were more direct, with statements like, family should always come first, and I'm disappointed in your choices, Tara. I scrolled through in disbelief, wondering how this had escalated so quickly. Then I saw it. Amanda had posted on social media. Her message painted a dramatically distorted version of the situation, heartbroken that my sister would choose a beach vacation over helping family in need. Struggling to explain to my children why their beloved aunt doesn't love them enough to help during a critical time. Family should be there for each other always. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments and angry reactions aimed at me, though none of these people knew the full story. Some of Amanda's friends, whom I'd never met, were tagging me directly, calling me selfish and worse. Jeff. I called, my voice shaking slightly. He came into the bedroom, toothbrush in hand, and I showed him my phone. His expression darkened as he read. This is ridiculous. She's deliberately misrepresenting what happened. Should I respond? Try to explain? He considered it, then shook his head. That's exactly what she wants. To drag you into a public argument that disrupts our trip. Let's just focus on getting to the airport. We can deal with this when we get back. I knew he was right. But the unfairness of it all made my chest tight. Still, I silenced my notifications and finished getting ready. Our flight was scheduled for 10 o'clock, and we needed to be at the airport by 7. As we loaded our luggage into the car, my mother called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Your father is absolutely heartbroken by your behavior, she said without greeting. He didn't sleep all night thinking about how we failed in raising you to understand family values. I took a deep breath. Mom, I understand you're upset, but this trip has been planned for years. Amanda has had months to make other arrangements. Other arrangements? She sounded genuinely puzzled. But you're her sister. You're the obvious choice to watch the children. I'm also a person with my own life. And commitments, I said, trying to stay calm. Jeff and I have been looking forward to this trip since our wedding. We've saved for 3 years to make it happen. Jeff, she said, as though just remembering he existed. I'm sure he would understand if you stayed behind. He could still go and enjoy himself. The suggestion that we should separate for our anniversary trip was the final straw. Mom, I have to go. We're heading to the airport. If you get on that plane, Tara, you'll be making a statement about where your priorities lie, she warned. Don't expect things to be the same when you get back. I ended the call feeling physically ill. Jeff, who had heard enough to understand, squeezed my hand reassuringly. It's going to be okay. They'll calm down while we're gone. But as we drove to the airport, messages continued to pour in. My cousin Heather, who I hadn't spoken to in at least 2 years, texted Amanda is devastated. How could you abandon her like this? My uncle David, my father's brother, called and left a voicemail saying he was deeply disappointed in my selfish behavior. Even my boss at the hospital, with whom Amanda had apparently connected on social media, sent a message expressing surprise at my family situation and hoping it would resolve amicably. The fact that Amanda had taken this beyond family into my professional sphere felt like a deliberate attempt to damage my reputation. By the time we reached airport parking, I was fighting back tears. Jeff pulled into a space and turned off the engine, but didn't immediately move to get out. Tara, he said gently, if you truly want to cancel and stay behind, I'll understand. I don't think it's the right choice, but I'll support you whatever you decide. I looked at my husband, this kind man who had stood by me through everything. The family drama, the fertility struggles, the long work hours, and I made my decision. No, I said firmly. We're getting on that plane. We've earned this trip, and we're going to enjoy every minute of it. He smiled, the relief evident in his eyes. That's my girl. As we waited at our gate, I sent one final group text to my parents, and Amanda, Jeff, and I are boarding our flight now. I love you all, but I'm disappointed by how this situation has been handled. We'll talk when we get back in 10 days. Please respect our time away. I shut off my phone as we boarded, determined to leave the drama behind us, at least temporarily. As the plane took off, I felt a strange mixture of guilt, anger, and relief. Hawaii was waiting, and for the next 10 days it would be just Jeff and me, exactly as we'd planned. Hawaii was everything we'd dreamed it would be, and more. The moment we stepped off the plane in Honolulu, the warm, fragrant air wrapped around us like a gentle embrace. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and the sky was an impossible shade of blue. Our beachfront resort on Waikiki featured a room with a partial ocean view, and the sound of waves lulled us to sleep each night. We spent our days exploring the island, hiking to hidden waterfalls, snorkeling in crystal-clear waters teeming with colorful fish, and sampling local cuisine from food trucks and family-owned restaurants. In the evenings, we walked along the beach hand in hand, watching spectacular sunsets paint the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink. On our third day, while swimming in the ocean, Jeff's phone was damaged beyond repair when an unexpected wave knocked him over. While initially upset about losing his photos and contacts, he quickly came to see it as a blessing in disguise. "No more messages, no more stress," he said, smiling as we sat on the beach afterward. "I'm completely disconnected, and it feels amazing." I envied his forced digital detox. Despite my best intentions, I couldn't bring myself to completely disconnect. Every night I'd check my phone, and every night there would be more messages from family members, some concerned, others accusatory. My mother sent daily updates, each designed to maximize guilt. Amanda had to hire an emergency nanny service. So expensive, but what choice did she have? Or Sophie asked again, "When you're coming home?" "She doesn't understand why you left without saying goodbye." Amanda's tactics grew increasingly manipulative. She sent photos of the children looking sad with captions like, "Missing Aunt Tara, who doesn't care about us anymore," and "Another dinner without our favorite aunt." The children appeared coached to look as miserable as possible, which broke my heart. I knew they were being used as pawns in a game I hadn't agreed to play. My extended family members continued their campaign as well. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my choices. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, called to mediate the situation, but really just tried to convince me to cut the trip short. "Family peace is worth more than a few days in paradise. Don't you think?" she asked, as though the answer was obvious. I started having trouble sleeping, spending hours staring at the ceiling of our hotel room while Jeff slumbered peacefully beside me. The constant messages were taking a toll, tainting what should have been a perfect vacation. I considered turning off my phone completely, but worried about potential emergencies. Real ones, not the manufactured crisis my family had created. Midway through our trip, we took a sunset dinner cruise along the Na Pali coast. The breathtaking scenery with dramatic cliffs plunging into the ocean temporarily distracted me from the family drama. As we sipped champagne and watched the sun sink below the horizon, I felt truly relaxed for the first time since we'd arrived. That evening, back in our hotel room, I discovered something unexpected. After days of nausea and fatigue that I'd attributed to stress and time zone changes, I realized my period was late. Very late. On a whim, I purchased a pregnancy test from the hotel gift shop. I stared in disbelief at the 2 pink lines that appeared on the test stick. After 3 years of trying countless negative tests and thousands spent on fertility treatments, I was pregnant. Naturally. On our anniversary trip, when I emerged from the bathroom, test in hand, Jeff took one look at my face and knew. Are you? I nodded, unable to speak through my tears of joy. He swept me into his arms, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. It felt like a miracle, like Hawaii itself had worked some special magic for us. "This is why we needed this trip," Jeff said later as we lay in bed, his hand resting protectively on my still flat stomach. This time away, this chance to reconnect and relax. Maybe this is what we needed all along. I wanted to believe he was right, that the stress of trying so hard had been preventing conception all this time. Whatever the reason, I was overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. For a brief, shining moment, the family conflict seemed insignificant compared to this new life beginning inside me. But reality intruded again the next morning when I checked my phone to find an ominous message from Amanda. "Hope you're enjoying yourself. Just wait until you see what's waiting for you at home." "No." I showed Jeff the message, concern creasing his brow. "What do you think she means by that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I'm not going to let it ruin our good news or what's left of our trip." We tried to focus on enjoying our remaining days now with the added excitement of our pregnancy. We discussed names dreamed about the nursery and speculated about whether we were having a boy or girl. I was careful with what I ate and drank, suddenly protective of this precious new life. But as our departure date approached, I couldn't shake a growing sense of dread about what awaited us back home. The night before our flight, I received a text from our neighbor Ellen. "Not sure what's going on, but thought you should know someone was at your house yesterday. Didn't recognize them, but they had a key. Everything okay?" I showed Jeff alarm bells ringing in my head. "Who would have a key to our house?" "Your parents," Jeff reminded me grimly. "Remember when we gave them one for emergencies after the pipe burst last winter?" I immediately called Ellen back for more details. She described a man she didn't recognize entering our house in the middle of the day, staying for about 20 minutes, then leaving. "I would have called the police," she explained, "but I assumed it was a friend or family member since they had a key." Her description sounded like Ryan, Amanda's husband, though Ellen couldn't be certain. What would Ryan be doing in our house while we were away? The question haunted me as we packed for our return journey. "Whatever it is, we'll deal with it together," Jeff assured me, placing a protective hand on my abdomen. All three of us. With mixed emotions, we boarded our flight home, leaving paradise behind but carrying a piece of its magic with us in the form of our unexpected miracle. The moment we unlocked our front door, the smell hit us. A putrid, unmistakable odor of sewage. Water stained the carpet in the hallway, and as we followed the wet trail to its source, we found our guest bathroom in a state of disaster. The toilet had clearly been deliberately clogged, with what looked like an entire roll of paper towels causing it to overflow. The water damage extended into the hallway and guest bedroom. "Oh my God," I whispered, surveying the damage. The house had been empty for 10 days, with water seeping into the floors and walls. The damage was extensive. Jeff immediately shut off the water supply to the toilet and called a plumber for emergency service. They couldn't come until morning, so we spent our first night back home in a house that smelled like a sewer, running fans to dry the carpet and using towels to soak up standing water. I was livid. This wasn't an accident or coincidence. This was deliberate sabotage, and I had a pretty good idea who was responsible. The next morning, the plumber confirmed our suspicions. This was no accident, folks. Someone stuffed paper towels and what looks like a small hand towel down there. Toilets don't clog like this naturally. He estimated the repair costs, including fixing the toilet and addressing the water damage, would be close to $3,000. Our homeowner's insurance would cover some of it, but we'd still be responsible for the deductible. After the plumber left, I checked our security camera footage. We had a single outdoor camera covering the front door, which we'd installed after a series of package thefts in the neighborhood. Sure enough, the footage showed Ryan, Amanda's husband, arriving at our house 2 days before we returned. He used a key to enter and left about 20 minutes later, looking nervously over his shoulder as he departed. I was shaking with anger as I showed Jeff the footage. They did this deliberately, to punish us for going on our trip. Jeff's normally calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by cold fury. "This crosses a line, Tara. This is criminal property damage." I agreed, but wanted to confront them directly before deciding whether to involve the police. I texted my parents, Amanda and Ryan, asking them all to meet at our house that evening. "We need to discuss what happened while we were away. Everyone needs to be present." My mother responded immediately. "Good. It's time you apologized for abandoning your family responsibilities." I didn't bother responding to that. Ryan didn't reply at all, while Amanda sent a terse "Fine." They arrived as a group that evening. My parents first, followed by Amanda and a reluctant-looking Ryan. They seemed prepared for a very different conversation than the one I intended to have. "Before we begin," my mother said as they settled into our living room, "I want to say that we're willing to move past your selfish behavior if you sincerely apologize and make amends." "Make amends?" I repeated incredulously. "That's actually why I called you here, but not in the way you think." I played the security footage on our television showing Ryan clearly entering and leaving our house. Then I led them to the guest bathroom where the damage was evident despite our cleanup efforts. "Would anyone like to explain this?" I asked, looking directly at Ryan, whose face had drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about, he muttered unconvincingly. My father looked genuinely shocked. Ryan, did you do this? It was just supposed to be a small prank. Amanda interjected, jumping to her husband's defense. Just to give them a little inconvenience. When they got home, like the inconvenience they caused us. A little inconvenience, Jeff's voice was dangerously quiet. This has caused thousands of dollars in damage. The water was running for days. My mother surprisingly seemed horrified. Amanda, Ryan, this is completely unacceptable. I had no idea about this. Amanda ignored her, instead reaching into her purse and pulling out a folded document which she thrust at me. Speaking of costs, here's the bill for the emergency nanny service we had to hire. $4,800 for 2 weeks of childcare. Since this expense was directly caused by your selfishness, we expect you to cover it. I stared at the bill in disbelief. You vandalize our home, causing thousands in damage, and you have the audacity to demand money from us. We wouldn't have needed the nanny if you'd just done your duty as family, Amanda insisted. And maybe the toilet incident wouldn't have happened if you'd been more considerate of others' needs. My father, to his credit, seemed uncomfortable with this logic. Amanda damaging their property was completely out of line regardless of the circumstances. I'm pregnant, I announced, suddenly the words escaping, before I could consider them. The room fell silent. I found out while we were in Hawaii. After 3 years of trying, of heartbreak, of fertility treatments that didn't work, I'm finally pregnant. That trip meant everything to us. And this is how you choose to treat us during what should be one of the happiest times of our lives. My mother's expression changed instantly, softening with genuine joy and surprise. Tara, that's wonderful news. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because every communication from this family for the past 2 weeks has been hostile and manipulative, I replied coldly. Because instead of celebrating with us, you've been punishing us for not bending to Amanda's demands. Amanda, rather than sharing in the excitement, scowled. Convenient timing. I suppose this means you'll expect everyone to forget about your behavior because you're pregnant now. Amanda, my father admonished. That's a terrible thing to say to your sister. I turned to my mother, who seemed torn between delight at my pregnancy and loyalty to Amanda. Mom, I think this pregnancy is punishment for Tara's selfishness. Amanda continued, doubling down. Now she'll understand what it means to be a mother, and how sometimes you have to make sacrifices. The room fell silent at this cruel statement. Even Ryan looked uncomfortable now. I'd like you all to leave, I said, quietly fighting to maintain my composure. And I want my house key back. Now, my father reached for his keychain and removed our house key, placing it on the coffee table without a word. My mother hesitated, but eventually did the same, and the bill for the nanny Amanda pressed, ignoring the tension. Jeff, who had remained remarkably controlled until now, finally spoke up. Here's what's gonna happen. We have video evidence of Ryan deliberately damaging our property. Either you tear up that bill right now, or we'll be filing a police report for criminal vandalism and pursuing you for the repair costs. Ryan paled. You wouldn't. Try me, Jeff, responded, his voice steady. Your little prank caused thousands in damage. I wonder how your business associates would react to you having a criminal record. Amanda looked at her husband, then back at us, her face flushed with anger. But she took the bill from my hand and tore it in half. Fine. Consider us even. We're not even, I corrected her. Not by a long shot. But this conversation is over. As they filed out, my mother tried to hug me, whispering congratulations about the baby again. I stepped back, avoiding her embrace. Not now, Mom. I need some time. When they were gone, I collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained. Jeff sat beside me, taking my hand in his. Are you okay? He asked gently. The baby. I nodded, placing my free hand protectively over my abdomen. We're okay. But I think I need some distance from my family for a while. He nodded, understanding completely. Whatever you need. We'll figure this out together. I couldn't have imagined how quickly things had escalated, or how deeply the rift in my family would grow in the weeks to come. For the next 2 weeks, I maintained complete silence with my family. No calls, no texts, no social media interaction. I blocked Amanda completely after she continued to send passive-aggressive messages, and I set my parents' contacts to do not disturb. The silence was both painful and liberating. Jeff's parents, Dave and Linda, were a stark contrast to my family. When we told them about the pregnancy, they were overjoyed, dropping by with a tiny stuffed animal and offering genuine support without any strings attached. Their warmth highlighted the toxicity I'd been accepting as normal from my own family. You know, Linda said during one visit, family doesn't behave the way your sister and parents did. What they're doing isn't love. It's control. Her words resonated deeply. I'd always known my family dynamics were problematic, but I'd normalized them over the years. Now, with my own child on the way, I was seeing everything through a new lens. 12 days into our self-imposed family exile, I received a call from an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something made me pick up. Aunt Tara came, a small, familiar voice. It was Sophie, Amanda's 8-year-old daughter. "Sophie, how are you calling me, sweetie?" From Grandma's phone, she whispered. "Mom doesn't know. I miss you. Are you mad at us too?" My heart broke a little. "No, Sophie. I'm not mad at you or your brother or sister. I love you all very much. Mom says you don't love us anymore because you went on vacation instead of playing with us. But that doesn't make sense because you always come back from vacations. Children often see truth more clearly than adults. You're right, Sophie. I always come back, and I always love you. I'm just having a disagreement with your mom right now, but it has nothing to do with you." "Are you really going to have a baby?" she asked, excitement evident in her voice. I smiled, surprised that news had reached her. "Yes, I am. You're going to have a little cousin. Cool, I hope it's a girl. Boys are gross like Lucas." The innocent conversation continued for a few minutes before I heard my mother's voice in the background, and Sophie quickly said goodbye. The call reinforced my determination to maintain relationships with my nieces and nephew regardless of the situation with Amanda. Later that week, I reached out to my mother to arrange a time to see the children. She seemed cautiously pleased by the contact, but warned me that Amanda was still very angry. We arranged for me to take the kids to the park on Saturday, carefully timing it for when Amanda would be at her weekly hair appointment. The visit went wonderfully. The children were delighted to see me, and we spent 2 hours playing on the swings and slides, getting ice cream and talking about everything and nothing. I was careful not to mention the family conflict or say anything negative about their parents. They were innocent in all this, and I was determined to protect that innocence. As I was driving them home, Sophie asked innocently, "Are you and Mom fighting because she made Dad clog your toilet?" I nearly swerved off the road in shock. "What did you just say?" Sophie looked suddenly worried. "Was it a secret I heard Mom telling Dad to do it because you deserved it for going to Hawaii without her permission?" I carefully schooled my expression. "It's complicated, sweetie. Adult stuff. But thank you for telling me." When I dropped the children off, Amanda was waiting at the door, arms crossed and expression sour. She said nothing to me, merely ushering the children inside and closing the door in my face. I left feeling both sad about the situation and resolved to maintain boundaries. The following week brought new complications. My morning sickness intensified, and I found myself struggling through my shifts at the hospital. My supervisor, Joan, called me into her office after I had to excuse myself from a patient's room to be sick. "Tara, is everything all right? This isn't like you," she said, with genuine concern. I hadn't planned to share my pregnancy news at work so early, but circumstances forced my hand. When I told her, she was thrilled, but insisted I take things easier. "And there's something else," I admitted hesitantly. "I've been under a lot of stress due to a family situation. It's affecting my health and the pregnancy." Joan listened empathetically as I gave her a brief overview of the conflict. To my surprise, she shared that she'd gone through something similar with her own sister years ago. The hospital has a support program for staff dealing with personal challenges, she explained, writing down contact information for the Employee Assistance Program. They offer free counseling services. I really think it might help. I took her advice and connected with a counselor named Megan. Our first session was revelatory. She helped me understand that what I was experiencing was a form of emotional abuse. Your family is using emotional manipulation, guilt, and even property damage to punish you for setting a boundary, she explained. That's not normal or healthy. Through Megan, I also learned about a support group for people dealing with family boundary issues. The group met weekly in the community center near my home, and attending my first meeting was like finding an oasis in the desert. Hearing others share similar experiences helped me realize I wasn't alone, and that my desire for healthy boundaries wasn't selfish or wrong. One evening after a particularly emotional support group meeting, I received a call from my father. It was unusual for him to call rather than my mother, so I answered, concerned there might be an emergency. Tara, he began awkwardly. Your mother and I have been talking, and we think this situation has gone on long enough. We'd like to come over tomorrow to discuss a resolution. I hesitated. Dad, I'm still processing everything that happened. I'm not sure I'm ready for that conversation yet. It's important, he insisted. There are things you need to understand about our family situation. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to a brief visit the following evening with Jeff present. When my parents arrived, they seemed unusually subdued. My mother didn't immediately try to hug me or make comments about the pregnancy, which was uncharacteristic. After awkward pleasantries, my father cleared his throat. Tara, we owe you an explanation, and perhaps an apology. There are financial aspects to this situation that you're not aware of. He went on to reveal something I'd never known. My parents had been financially supporting Amanda and Ryan for years. Despite Ryan's good income, Amanda's spending habits had put them deeply in debt. My parents had paid off their credit cards multiple times, helped with their mortgage, and regularly provided money for the children's activities and expenses. When you refused to babysit, my father explained, it wasn't just about childcare. Amanda couldn't afford a nanny service without our help, and we've been trying to establish firmer financial boundaries with her. I was stunned. So you pressured me to cancel my anniversary trip because you're trying to stop enabling Amanda's financial irresponsibility? How does that make any sense? My mother looked embarrassed. We thought if you helped with childcare, it would give us a break from always being the ones to step in. We didn't handle it well, I see that now. The revelation explained a lot about the intensity of their reaction, but justified nothing. Why have you never told me about this before? Amanda made us promise not to tell you, my mother admitted. She was embarrassed. Not embarrassed enough to stop overspending or to adjust her lifestyle. Jeff pointed out, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived. My father nodded grimly. That's becoming increasingly clear to us. The toilet incident was a wake-up call. That kind of vindictiveness isn't something we can support or excuse. There was a fragile honesty to this conversation that felt new. My parents weren't fully apologizing for their role in the conflict, but they were at least acknowledging some of the dysfunction. I appreciate you telling me this, I said carefully. But it doesn't change the fact that I need space and stronger boundaries going forward, especially now with the baby coming. They accepted this with surprising grace. And as they were leaving, my mother tentatively asked if she could call occasionally to check on the pregnancy. I agreed, setting clear parameters around frequency and topics. It was a small step, but a significant one. As my pregnancy progressed into the second month, the physical symptoms intensified. My doctor expressed concern about my elevated blood pressure and stress levels, recommending reduced hours at work and more rest. The family situation, despite the small progress with my parents, continued to cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful time. Amanda remained distant and hostile, refusing any attempts at reconciliation unless it began with my apology and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Through the children and my parents, I learned she was struggling with the new financial boundaries our parents had established, further fueling her resentment toward me. The contrast between my family situation and Jeff's supportive parents became increasingly stark. While my family brought stress and conflict, His brought casseroles offers of help, with nursery preparations and respectful acknowledgement of our boundaries. Their example showed me what healthy family relationships could look like. Supportive without being controlling, loving without manipulation. One night, as Jeff and I were discussing nursery colors, he brought up a difficult question. Have you thought about what role your family will play after the baby is born? Especially Amanda. I hadn't wanted to think about it, but the question needed addressing. I don't know. I can't imagine completely cutting them off. But I also can't expose our child to the kind of toxic dynamics I grew up with. We'll figure it out, he assured me, always my rock. One step at a time. Neither of us could have anticipated how dramatically things would come to a head just a few days later. 2 months after our return from Hawaii, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, our doorbell rang insistently. Jeff and I were assembling a crib, our first major purchase for the nursery, and were covered in sawdust and instruction manuals. I peered through the peephole to see my entire family standing on the porch. My parents, Amanda, Ryan, and even the children. Amanda was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, while my mother had her arm around her protectively. What's going on? Jeff asked, joining me at the door. It's everyone, I whispered. The whole family. We exchanged concerned glances before opening the door. They filed in without waiting for an invitation, the adults wearing expressions ranging from determination to discomfort. The children looked confused and slightly afraid, sensing the tension. We need to resolve this situation once and for all, my mother announced, taking charge as usual. This family rift has gone on long enough. I crossed my arms protectively over my small but visible baby bump. I wasn't aware we had a scheduled discussion today. Some things can't wait for convenient scheduling, Amanda said, dramatically sniffling into her tissue. My children are suffering without their aunt in their lives. They don't understand why you've abandoned them. Sophie, Lucas, and Ellie did look upset, but I suspected their distress had more to do with the adults' behavior than my temporary absence from their lives. I saw the children just last weekend at the park, I pointed out. We had a wonderful time together. Amanda waved this off. A few hours doesn't make up for weeks of absence. They need stability. Jeff stepped forward. What's this really about? Because I doubt you all showed up unannounced on a Sunday just to discuss the children's emotional well-being. My father produced a folder from inside his jacket. We've been discussing the financial aspects of this situation, he began formally. As a family, we believe there needs to be accountability. He handed me the folder. Inside were 2 documents. The original bill for the emergency nanny service that Amanda had hired, totaling $4,800, and an estimate for repairing our bathroom, which was still not completely fixed due to deeper water damage discovered later. We think you should pay Amanda's nanny expenses, my mother stated, as though it were a reasonable request. And since you've made such an issue about the toilet incident, Ryan is willing to contribute $500 toward your repairs, which seems more than fair, given the circumstances. I stared at them in disbelief. You can't be serious. Ryan deliberately vandalized our home, causing thousands in damage, and you want us to pay Amanda's childcare expenses while offering a token contribution toward our repairs. It's about taking responsibility, Amanda insisted. If you had just helped with the children as family, none of this would have happened. The nanny expenses are directly your fault, Ryan added, speaking for the first time. And let's be honest, the toilet thing was just an unfortunate prank that went too far. I never meant for it to cause serious damage. Jeff laughed incredulously. A prank? You stuffed paper towels and a hand towel down our toilet and left the water running while we were away for days. What exactly did you think would happen? This isn't productive, my father interjected. We're here to find a solution. Tara, you need to understand that actions have consequences. Your decision affected the entire family. I felt a surge of anger unlike anything I'd experienced before. You want to talk about consequences? How about the consequences of boundary violations, of emotional manipulation, of property damage? You're being overdramatic, my mother dismissed. This is what families do. They have disagreements and then find compromises. This isn't a disagreement, I countered. This is a pattern of disrespect and manipulation that's been going on my entire life. Amanda demands everyone else accommodates. Anyone who doesn't is punished. Amanda began crying more forcefully. That's so unfair. I've always been there for you, when I challenged. Name one time you've sacrificed something significant for me, the way you expected me to sacrifice my anniversary trip for you. She opened and closed her mouth, unable to produce an example. I think you should all leave, Jeff said firmly. This isn't a productive conversation, and it's causing Tara stress that isn't good for the baby. The baby, my father said, shaking his head. You keep using that as an excuse. Pregnancy isn't an illness, Tara. Your mother worked right up until the day she delivered both of you. These hormones are making you irrational. That sexist dismissal of my very real health concerns was the final straw. I want everyone to leave. Now. Hemmer. No one moved. Did you hear me? This is our home and you're all trespassing at this point? Leave. Not until we resolve this, Amanda insisted. We're family. We can't just walk away from problems. Actually, you can, Jeff said, pulling out his phone. And if you don't, I'll call the non-emergency police line and report unwanted guests who refuse to leave our property. Your choice, Ryan scoffed. You'd call the police on your own family. That's low. What's low? I said evenly. Is showing up unannounced, making unreasonable demands, refusing to leave when asked, and causing stress to a pregnant woman who's been advised by her doctor to avoid exactly this kind of situation. My mother looked genuinely shocked. You wouldn't really call the police. Jeff had already dialed. I'm about to. Last chance to leave voluntarily. The tension in the room was suffocating. The children who had been silent witnesses to this adult conflict looked increasingly distressed. Sophie, always the most perceptive of the three, suddenly burst into tears. Stop it! Everyone stop fighting! She sobbed. I hate this. Amanda immediately went to comfort her daughter. It's okay, sweetie. Aunt Tara is just being difficult. Sophie pulled away from her mother's embrace. No. You're being mean to Aunt Tara. You told us to act sad in those pictures you sent her. You made us say we missed her even though you told us she doesn't love us anymore. Which isn't true. The room fell silent at this revelation. Sophie continued through her tears. I recorded you on my tablet. You said to Lucas, look extra sad in this picture. So Aunt Tara feels guilty. But Aunt Tara told us at the park that she loves us no matter what. Amanda's face flushed deep red. Sophie, that's enough. Is that true, Amanda? My mother asked, looking disturbed. Did you coach the children to manipulate Tara? Amanda stammered, caught in her deception. It wasn't like that. I was just trying to show Tara how much the kids missed her. By lying, Jeff challenged. By using children as emotional pawns. I felt a sudden sharp pain in my abdomen and gasped, doubling over. Jeff was immediately at my side, supporting me as I struggled to breathe through the cramping sensation. Tara, what's wrong? The alarm in his voice cut through the tension in the room. I don't know, I managed between shallow breaths. Sharp pain. Like a contraction. My mother's nursing background kicked in, overriding the family drama. How far along are you? 12 weeks. I nodded, still bent over from the pain. Sit down, she instructed, her tone shifting from confrontational to professional. It could be Braxton Hicks contractions brought on by stress. But at this stage, we shouldn't take chances. Jeff helped me to the couch while my mother checked my pulse and asked medical questions. The rest of the family stood awkwardly by the argument, momentarily forgotten in the face of a potential medical emergency. After a few minutes, the pain subsided. My mother suggested calling my obstetrician and possibly going to the emergency room as a precaution. Jeff was already on the phone with the on-call doctor describing my symptoms. The doctor wants us to come in, he reported after hanging up. Just to be safe. The crisis had effectively ended the confrontation. My parents offered to take the children, so Amanda and Ryan could drive us to the hospital. But Jeff firmly declined. I appreciate the offer, but I'll take Tara myself. I think it would be best if everyone left now so we can focus on what's important. There was no arguing with that. As they gathered to leave, my mother squeezed my hand and whispered, "Call me when you know something." I nodded, too exhausted for further conflict. After everyone left, Jeff helped me to the car, his face tight with worry. "I'm so sorry this happened. It's not your fault," I assured him, the fear for our baby temporarily overshadowing everything else. At the hospital, the doctor performed an ultrasound and ran several tests. To our immense relief, everything appeared normal. The baby's heartbeat was strong and there were no signs of complications. The doctor diagnosed Braxton Hicks contractions triggered by stress and advised me to avoid stressful situations, get plenty of rest, and return immediately if the pain recurred. As we drove home, emotionally drained but relieved, Jeff reached over and took my hand. "This has to stop, Tara. What happened today, we can't let it happen again. Your health and the baby's health have to come first." I nodded, a sense of clarity washing over me. "I know. It's time to set some real enforceable boundaries. No more half measures." The health scare had crystallized something important. My growing family, Jeff and our unborn child, needed protection from the toxic dynamics that had been normalized in my life for too long. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. After the hospital scare, I spent the next few days in quiet reflection, thinking deeply about what healthy family relationships should look like and what boundaries I needed to establish. With Jeff's support and guidance from my therapist, I drafted a detailed letter to my family, explaining my perspective and outlining necessary changes moving forward. The letter wasn't angry or accusatory, but it was firm and specific. I explained how their behavior had affected me throughout my life, and especially during recent events. I detailed the health concerns that their actions had created during my pregnancy, including the doctor's warning about stress. Most importantly, I outlined clear boundaries for future interaction. No unannounced visits. All visits must be scheduled and confirmed in advance. No discussion of financial matters between Amanda and me. Any financial disputes would be handled through appropriate legal channels if necessary. Respect for my nuclear family's decisions without guilt, manipulation, or punishment. No negative comments about my parenting choices once the baby arrived. Limited contact during the remainder of my pregnancy to protect my health. I concluded by expressing hope for healthier relationships in the future, but made it clear that these boundaries were non-negotiable. Violating them would result in further distance, not compromise. After sending the letter via email to ensure everyone received the same message, I waited anxiously for the response. It came in various forms over the next week. My father called first, his tone subdued. "I read your letter," he began awkwardly. "It's given your mother and me a lot to think about. I want you to know that while I don't agree with everything you wrote, I respect your right to set boundaries." It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the issues, but it was a start. My mother sent a text that was similarly measured, promising to try to do better without specifically addressing any of the points I'd raised. Amanda's response was predictably defensive and came in the form of a long, emotionally charged email that alternated between self-justification and accusations. She portrayed herself as the victim in the situation and suggested my pregnancy hormones were distorting my perspective. I read it once, showed it to Jeff, and then filed it away without responding. Ryan surprisingly sent a separate email, apologizing specifically for the toilet incident. "It was immature and wrong," he wrote. "I let my frustration override my better judgment, and I'm truly sorry for the damage it caused both to your home and to our family relationships." He enclosed a check for $2,000 toward the repairs, far more than the token amount previously offered. The most unexpected development came from Jeff's mother, Linda. She called one evening to invite us to dinner, and during the meal revealed that she had taken it upon herself to speak with my extended family about the situation. "I hope you don't mind," she said, refilling my water glass. But I've known your Aunt Carol for years, through the garden club, and when she mentioned the family drama, I felt I needed to provide some perspective. Apparently, Linda had organized what amounted to an intervention with several of my extended family members, helping them understand the toxic patterns at play and encouraging them to support healthier boundaries rather than pressuring me to maintain the status quo. Carol was quite receptive, Linda explained. She shared that similar dynamics played out in her generation with your mother and their siblings. It seems this pattern goes back quite a ways in your family. This revelation led to a healing conversation with my Aunt Carol, who called to share her own experiences with my mother's controlling tendencies when they were younger. Your mother always had to have things her way, she explained. And our parents reinforced it by always giving in to avoid conflict. I see the same thing happening with Amanda now. Carol's insight and support were invaluable, providing historical context for patterns I'd always assumed were unique to my immediate family. She became an unexpected ally, often running interference with other family members when they tried to pressure me about reconciliation without boundaries. The weeks passed and my pregnancy progressed healthily once the stress was reduced. I maintained limited contact with my parents, allowing short-scheduled visits focused on positive topics. They seemed to be making a genuine effort to respect the boundaries I'd established, though occasionally old patterns would emerge requiring gentle but firm reminders. Amanda remained the most resistant to change. When it became clear that I wouldn't budge on my boundaries, she attempted to use the children as leverage, threatening to restrict my access to them unless I fixed things on her terms. It was a painful situation, but Jeff reminded me that giving in to emotional blackmail would only reinforce the toxic pattern. Instead of engaging directly with Amanda, I reached out to Ryan, who had shown unexpected maturity since his apology. He agreed to facilitate occasional visits with the children, often bringing them to the park or library himself to avoid direct conflict between Amanda and me. It wasn't ideal, but it allowed me to maintain my relationship with Sophie, Lucas, and Ellie while upholding my boundaries with their mother. One afternoon during one of these visits, Sophie asked a question that caught me off guard. "Are you and Mom ever going to be friends again?" I considered how to answer honestly without burdening her with adult complexities. Sometimes, Sophie, people need space to figure things out. Your mom and I love you kids very much, but right now we need to work on how we talk to each other. It might take some time. She nodded thoughtfully. Mom's been different since the big fight at your house. She cried a lot after. And then Grandma and Grandpa stopped giving her money for shopping. Dad says we have to be more careful with money now. This indirect confirmation of the financial changes in Amanda's life explained some of her continued hostility. Without my parents' financial support, she was finally facing the consequences of her spending habits. As my due date approached, the situation with Amanda reached a turning point. My parents hosted a small baby shower, which Amanda initially refused to attend. At the last minute, however, she appeared at the door with a gift and an awkward, stilted apology. "I still think you could have helped with the kids that week," she said, unable to fully let go of her position. "But I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. And Ryan definitely shouldn't have messed with your bathroom." It wasn't the comprehensive acknowledgement I might have hoped for, but from Amanda it represented significant progress. I accepted the olive branch for what it was, and we reached a fragile truce. 2 weeks before my due date, I received an unexpected call from Amanda. Her tone was different than I'd heard in months. Humbled almost. "I've been working with a financial counselor," she said without preamble. "Mom and Dad made it a condition of any future help. And at first I was furious, but it's actually been eye-opening. I didn't realize how out of control things had gotten." "That's really great, Amanda," I said, genuinely pleased for her. "I remembered you offered to help me create a budget months ago before all this happened," she continued hesitantly. "Is that offer still open? The counselor is good, but having family support would help too." It was the first time in our adult lives that Amanda had asked for my help, without demanding or assuming it was owed. I agreed to meet with her the following week, setting clear parameters around the assistance I could provide while heavily pregnant. Our budget meeting was stiff and occasionally tense, but ultimately productive. Amanda seemed genuinely committed to making changes, motivated partly by Ryan's ultimatum that she address her spending habits or face more serious consequences in their marriage. As we worked through her finances, she made a confession. The trip to Cabo I was planning. When all this started, it wasn't really an anniversary surprise for Ryan. It was just a girls' trip I wanted to take with my friends. I made up the anniversary excuse because I thought it would sound more important than a vacation with friends. The admission confirmed what I'd suspected, but never proven. Rather than focusing on the lie, I acknowledged her honesty. Thank you for telling me the truth. That couldn't have been easy. She shrugged, looking embarrassed. Nothing about this has been easy. But I'm trying to be more honest. With you. With Ryan. With myself. When I went into labor 3 days later, 2 weeks early but otherwise uncomplicated, my family respected our wishes for privacy during delivery. Jeff was my only support person in the delivery room, providing calm encouragement through 12 hours of labor that resulted in the birth of our daughter, Hope Elizabeth. We sent a group text with her photo and vital statistics once she was cleaned and assessed, and the responses flooded in. Congratulations, love, and promises to visit when we were ready. No pressure, no demands, just joy and respect for our new family's need for bonding time. When we did welcome visitors a week later, everyone honored the visitation schedule we'd established. Short visits, no unannounced drop-ins, and strict adherence to the health precautions we'd requested. My mother, to her credit, resisted the urge to offer unsolicited advice about baby care, instead asking thoughtful questions about our preferences and decisions. Amanda came with the children, who were enchanted by their tiny cousin. Sophie appointed herself official helper, proudly fetching diapers and burp cloths. As Amanda prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "You're good at this," she said, nodding toward where I sat nursing Hope, motherhood, setting boundaries, all of it. I could probably learn a few things from my little sister. It wasn't a grand declaration of change or a sweeping apology for years of difficult dynamics. But in our family, it represented a seismic shift. A small acknowledgement that perhaps the established order needed reconsideration. 6 months after Hope's birth, our family relationships continue to evolve. Some days are easier than others. Old patterns occasionally resurface, requiring gentle but firm reinforcement of boundaries. But the explosive conflicts have ceased, replaced by more respectful, if sometimes distant, interactions. Jeff and I have created the family environment we want for Hope. One built on mutual respect, healthy communication, and unconditional love, without manipulation. My parents are learning to be grandparents within the boundaries we've established, finding joy in their role without trying to control it. Amanda and I maintain a cordial relationship, focused primarily on the children, with occasional moments of genuine connection that suggest the possibility of something warmer in the future. The hardest lesson I've learned through this journey is that standing firm isn't selfish. It's necessary. By refusing to cancel our anniversary trip, and then establishing clear boundaries afterward, I wasn't rejecting my family. I was redefining what healthy family relationships should look like. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to say no, to set limits, and to require respect. It isn't always easy, and it rarely comes without resistance. But the peace and health it ultimately brings are worth the temporary discomfort and conflict. As I look at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her crib, I'm grateful that she will grow up with a different understanding of family than I had. One where love doesn't mean sacrifice at any cost, where healthy boundaries are respected, and where her voice and choices matter. That's a legacy worth fighting for. Have you ever had to stand firm against family pressure for your own well-being? What boundaries have you needed to set with loved ones to protect yourself or your immediate family? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about my journey through motherhood and family dynamics. And don't forget to share with anyone who might be struggling with similar family challenges. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, prioritizing your well-being isn't selfish, it's essential.